All right. Well, this is very exciting for me. We've got extremely special guest, Madison Hughes, captain of the Eagles Sevens team and sixth all-time leading scorer on the HSBC Sevens series, and
Wow.
personally one of my favorite players in the world in any code of rugby, and part of this USA team that has, I think, really lifted the level of sevens in this country. And I thank you, Madison, for hopping on with me.
Oh no, you're too kind, Alex. It's sick this high. I didn't realize I got that high. That's pretty incredible. But thanks for the kind
Yeah.
words and excited to be on.
Yeah, I'm extremely happy to have you. So I wanted to just ask you, a little bit about your journey to where you are today. And, obviously you started off in the UK and then came to the United States for school. And I would like to hear from your perspective just about, how you started with rugby and what that path has been like.
Yeah, so as you said, was growing up in England. My dad is English, my mom's American, but I grew up over there in the UK, and I started playing rugby at school. It was just kind of what we did at the time. In the fall, we played soccer, and in the winter, we played rugby. And kind of me and all my friends, we just did that, and then I got really into it. And I think my first year, I think I was like 7 years old, and I was complaining to my mom because it was rainy and cold, and I was like, this is not fun. But then we started playing some games, and then I started really enjoying it. And then I started playing at school and quickly fell in love with it. And yeah, just kept playing every year. Kept loving the sport, loved the variety of it, the contact element, the running with the ball, the team and community aspect, and all those different parts of it meant that I just kind of fell in love with the game. And as I kept going through school, playing at different levels, and then yeah, towards the end of my school time, I got involved with the high school All-American rugby team. I actually played against the USA U17s for
Really?
Southwest England. Scored a try in that game, and when I went to talk to the coach after the game, and was like, hey, like I'm US qualified, I'm planning to go out to college in the States. Is there anyone I could talk to about getting involved with kind of age grade stuff? And we put in touch with Matt Sherman, who was in charge of the development at the time, kind of went from there.
So when you were growing up in England, had you, dipped your toes into sevens, or was it primarily just 15s for you?
It was a good mix of both. As you kind of grow up in England, I think first you start playing 7-a-side, and then it becomes 9-a-side, and then it becomes 12-a-side, and then it becomes 15-a-side. But I was having sevens tournaments kind of interspersed throughout the regular season. I think from under 10s onwards, we would play kind of our regular season, and then we'd have a few sevens tournaments, and that was kind of happening from I think U10s onwards, and sevens with 10-year-olds looks a little different than sevens at the top level. But it was always something I really enjoyed. I thought kind of that smaller sided game brought out different aspects of play that were a lot of fun to play and be involved with. So I definitely always loved the sevens matches and the tournament feel, as opposed to the kind of the regular games we were playing.
Right. When you were growing up in England, you said you were in Southwest England?
So I'm trying to think. So I was in Southwest London, so just outside of London. I went to boarding school. So my boarding school was in the Southwest region, I guess. But where I probably lived was in the Southeast.
Did you ever play against Whitgift when you grew up?
I did several times. So we had very competitive matches with Whitgift.
That's where my dad is a Whitgiftian.
Okay. Yeah, no, I had some tough losses against Whitgift later on in my school career. They were always really good games. Sometimes we won, sometimes they won. But towards the end of my time, I think they got the better of us, and that still hurts, to be honest.
Were you playing against Marland Yard at the time?
So Marland Yard was the year above me at Whitgift. Elliot Daly was in my year at Whitgift.
Okay.
And actually, I played against Elliot Daly, I think every year from when I was 7 to 18. We were playing against each other in school matches.
Nice. That's a lot of Elliot Daly. What was your?
Yes, yeah, no, he was incredible every sport.
Which was your school?
I went to Wellington College.
Okay, cool. So you came over to the States to go to Dartmouth. Was rugby a factor in choosing Dartmouth, or were you going there because it's a top academic school?
It was definitely a mix of both. I think when I started looking at US colleges, my mom was like, if you're gonna go to the US for college, it's obviously much more expensive than in England. You've got to get into a good academic school. So I was looking at good academic schools, and I knew I had grades that kind of made me competitive for a school like Dartmouth, but obviously it's incredibly hard to get in. And then my family from the Northeast, so kind of I wanted to go to somewhere that was kind of close to where my aunts and uncles and cousins all were, somewhere I felt a little bit more at home as I was going quite a long way from my family. And so I was looking for a good academic school with a good rugby team in the Northeast, which helped narrow down my options. And then I went to visit Dartmouth, went around the college, loved it, and then I saw the clubhouse and the field out there, and I think I immediately turned to my mom and was like, yeah, I want to play here. This is a pretty incredible place. And yeah, that was that. And I was lucky enough to get in, and yeah, had a great 4 years there.
And yeah, definitely. You guys won 2 CRCs, which I don't think is, since Cal and Lindenwood have been winning them all, you guys are the last team to take the CRC. And I have to say, the year where y'all had that comeback against Cal in the final is one of the best games of sevens I've ever seen. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I actually, 2011, Dartmouth won, and then I started in the fall of 2011. So that first team was before I got there, but
Okay.
that 2012 team, I was very lucky to come into a Dartmouth team with a really strong and really good senior class, and they really helped me in my introduction, both to rugby in the US, but also just college and kind of and that path. And I'll always be immensely grateful to that group for helping me settle in at Dartmouth. And it was a really special team. I mean, that 2012 CRC was really an incredible thing to look back on what we did. And I mean, we had Nate Brakeley there, who I think our plan was to put up every kickoff, have him win it, and then not lose the ball for 14 minutes. And
I didn't realize
it more or less went to plan.
Oh, I didn't realize Nate Brakeley was on that same Dartmouth team.
Yeah, so he was a senior when I was a freshman. So he was on both of those CRC winning teams, and was there. We had several other really good players who unfortunately haven't really played much since graduation. But Nate was a big part of that team. Yeah, so we'd put the kickoff up. We'd challenge Nate, hey, go win this one for us, and we'd try and not lose the ball for 14 minutes. And that was kind of the plan we went into most games with. But yeah, it was incredible. I mean, that Cal game was incredible. I mean, we went down early, but we didn't really panic. We just kind of stayed to the task and tried to go one score at a time. And I mean, yeah, I think after that, I think Cal won either 4 or 5 straight CRCs.
Yeah, 5 straight
from there. So yeah. So it was, and that was actually the only time I played Cal in my college career. So I got quite lucky to come away with a pretty incredible win. And then not play them again and not tarnish that record, I guess.
Right. You're probably one of the very few people ever to be undefeated against Cal.
Probably. I mean, they do a pretty good job at winning over there. So
They do.
Yeah, we're all a little jealous of the records they put together, but no, I did quite well. I did quite well getting the victory early, and then I guess take my chips home.
Was Danny Barrett on the team when y'all played them?
So he was actually on the bench for most of that game. I think he says he came on with about 30 seconds to go, which more like that was a questionable decision in hindsight. I'm not going to get into their coaching decisions, but prime Danny Barrett is someone I want on the field whenever I'm around. So I feel quite happy that he was considered extra in that game. Actually, I played against Tiger with the All-Americans a few years later. And Perry Baker spent the first half of that game on the bench, and we ended up winning. So both Danny and Perry, I think, them being left on the bench for 2 crucial games has been my turn.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't hurt. So you finish up college in Dartmouth, and did you move right into the sevens program for the U.S. right out of college?
Yeah, so my sophomore winter at Dartmouth, Alex Magleby, who was the coach at the time, he invited me out, and I took the term off from Dartmouth, and I went out and I trained with the sevens team for 5 weeks. And it was incredibly valuable for me. I think it showed me that I'd been doing well on the college level, but if I wanted to succeed at that international level, I had to make a lot of improvements. Kind of both physically, I was a small guy, but also as a rugby. To that experience, I went back to Dartmouth, kind of worked pretty hard to improve my game to get stronger physically. And then I then played for the College of Americans that summer. And on the back of that, Hawkins, who'd been coach, he invited me, he offered me a contract with the sevens team. I had a tough decision that summer because I still had 2 years left at Dartmouth at that point, and obviously that was a degree that I really wanted to focus on and push for. But the sevens team and pursuing the series was something I'd really wanted to do. So I actually said that I wasn't going to come out at that time. But then the next winter, I took another term off from Dartmouth, and I went out, and then I ended up making my debut that winter for the sevens team. So that was my junior winter. And then I went back for the spring term. I remember walking off the field in Hong Kong, which was the last tournament before I was going back to school, and kind of taking a little extra time to look around and make sure I took it all in.
Right.
I knew I was going back to school, and things change, and I might never get the chance to play on the World Series again. So I wanted to make sure I took that in. But then Mike Friday then became the coach that summer. And I went back, did some camps, and then pretty much my whole senior year, I was kind of going back and forth between San Diego and New Hampshire, which isn't an easy commute to make.
No.
And kind of going back and forth and being with the sevens team whenever I could, and then being at school and getting my schoolwork done. Didn't get to play much rugby for Dartmouth that year, but getting my schoolwork done. And then as soon as I graduated, I moved out to Chula Vista. I've been pretty much there nonstop ever since.
That's cool. What did you end up getting your degree from Dartmouth in?
I was a history major, so it's liberal arts there. So I took a little bit of everything, but my major was history. I think it was always the subject I enjoyed most. And one of the big things that had appealed to me when I was coming to college in the States was getting that liberal arts degree where like I could focus on something like history and have that be my major that I enjoyed, but also have the opportunity to try out lots of different things and get exposure to different subjects versus in England when you go and just study that one subject for your entire degree.
Really?
So I like the kind of diversity that the liberal arts degree would allow me to have.
Interesting. I didn't know that it was like that in the UK for school. What was going through school at Dartmouth like? Because I know it's extremely hard to get in. So when you're there, is the coursework pretty challenging?
I mean, I think it can be. It depends a bit on how hard you push yourself. I think it's possible to get by. And you do have to work hard and you have to try hard. And I guess I don't really have other schools to compare it to because I don't know what it's like other places. But you definitely have to work hard and be on top of things. But I mean, there's also an environment where there are a lot of people who take schoolwork quite seriously. So you take your schoolwork seriously. We took our rugby seriously, but there's also plenty of time to have fun. And it's not just schoolwork all the time. But I did enjoy myself. I mean, for me, I think at the beginning, I sometimes took the rugby and having fun more seriously than some of my schoolwork. But as my degree went on, I learned that I had to really focus my time on what I wanted to achieve. And I mean, I guess, my girlfriend probably helped me there too. But my grades did continue just going up as my degree went on, even as I was spending more time flying back and forth across the country.
Cool. So you get the call up into the team and you make your debut. Which tournament was your first one with the team?
So it was Wellington. So I did not make the team for Vegas, and I played on the Falcons team in the LVI. And then there were a couple of injuries. Stephen Thomasine, who's come back in the last few years so strongly, but that was the first of his big injuries. And so he unfortunately came out of the team with an injury, and that allowed me to make my debut. And you never want anyone to get hurt, and I hated seeing that happen to Steve, but I also remember being incredibly happy that I was getting my chance and to give it everything I had.
The first tournament I remember really seeing you in was, and I'm sure you had other great tournaments before, but was I think it was London Sevens in 2015 when y'all won and y'all took first for the first time. And I just remember being pretty astounded at how fast you and some of our other players on the team were, and how it was kind of introduced a new level of speed to sevens. And I wanted to ask you, what that felt like getting the first, gold medal at a HSBC event was like, and then doing it in your own home city.
That London was incredibly special. I think it's one I'll always remember as a real highlight of my life, really. So the London Sevens, I remember going to when I was a kid, and I was standing on like kind of the rail where the players come out and asking for autographs and getting my program signed. So it was always a tournament that, like, when I started playing in the World Series, it was like, wow, I'd love to play in London. I was able to do that the year before. But then that season, we'd really been progressing. So that was our first under Mike Friday. And as the season went on, we were just coming closer and closer to really challenging those top teams. And I think we gained confidence in knowing that on our day, we could beat everyone. And it took a few tournaments for us to really get that feel. And I actually remember in the kind of the months before that London, and it's funny because we had tournaments between when I was saying this and London, but I remember just saying to my girlfriend, like, hey, imagine if we won London, like how that would be incredible, just because of how much it meant to me, I think. And then, so we played the pool games, and we didn't play that well in the pool games, but we were doing well. And then we were playing South Africa, and I think the score was pretty close, and then they got a yellow card. We scored 2 tries in that game, and to beat South Africa, which obviously they're an incredible team, and so that gave us huge confidence. We went to the quarterfinal against Canada, and I think I scored about first play of the game, like pretty quickly, put a grubber through. And then we played England in the semi-final, and I think before the game, it was obviously home tournament for England. They've always done well at London. And the stadium was getting pretty loud, and I remember saying to the guys, like, hey, the crowd thinks this is their weekend. This is our weekend. Let's go out and make it. And we just ran away with that game, and we were dominating the kickoffs. Colin Perry scored some great tries, and I think it might still be our biggest ever win over England. And it was pretty incredible just because we knew how pumped up they were for that game. Came into it, the crowd was all behind them, and we just played some of our best rugby, went into the final and played Australia, and again, dominated kickoffs. Danny Barrett was just trampling everyone in front of him. And I think the team just took so much energy from that. We had so much confidence. And it was just such a special weekend. I think we'd shown so many hints that we could beat anyone, that in our day we could win a tournament, but to do it and prove it to ourselves and everyone else really felt like a marker of what would be going forward.
I know, and it really has been, because obviously last season y'all finished second, and that's the highest we've ever done. Y'all made the semis in every single tournament, and obviously cemented yourself as, one of the contenders, especially coming into this next summer for the Olympics. Unfortunately, it's been postponed, but I think, realistically, when people talk about the teams that are going to compete for the gold medal, USA is right there now, and it's been cool because it's been like a steady climb, like 6th place, 5th place, 5th place again, then like 3rd and 2nd, in the overall standings. And I think that shows really good growth, under Friday and with the slot that you'll have. I do want to ask, last Olympics, you guys played Argentina in the first game, and I remember you made a tackle on Axel Mueller early in the game. And I don't know if you're allowed to say or not, but do you think that hit concussed you?
That's a good question.
I remember my brother and I were watching that live, and we were like, oh shit, Madison we can't lose Madison, and that looked bad. But I mean, I know you played through it and stuff, but that had to have at least rung your bell.
Yeah, so I'll answer, and so I find the concussion stuff, it's obviously a really important issue, but it's also quite a difficult one,
of course,
because it is such a difficult line to measure on what is getting hit in the head versus what is having a concussion. I mean, that
Right.
one, I actually think I was knocked out in that play. But at the time I didn't realize I was knocked out, which is, looking back, obviously I think concussion and head health is so important that if a guy's knocked out, a guy has a concussion, he should be coming out of the game. And this is going to sound pretty bad, but like, I don't think in the moment I was able to make that decision.
Yeah.
I think because I mean, I remember watching that film after the game, and the point where I thought like I'd just taken a little blow to the head was about 5 minutes after that actual Muller hit.
Yeah.
And I just kind of been playing and almost on autopilot for about
Right.
5 minutes there, which again sounds really bad. I think it's a really difficult one because like our physical trainer Brian, he takes it so seriously, and before every tournament he's saying, okay guys, if you get anything, you got to make sure you're honest with me. These are like, we have what we call Madisons. That if he suspects anything, any possibility of head trauma, he'll ask you those questions, and if he gets any hint that something might have happened, he'll pull you straight out. So he takes it incredibly seriously. But what had happened was the night before the game, Chris Wiles was taking his baseline concussion test, and he kept getting one word wrong, and he kept saying the word is wax instead of candle on the baseline. And so I was joking around like, hey Brian, like if any of us start saying wax to you, you're going to know that we're actually fine.
Yeah.
And so in my state that I was in, I did just start yelling wax at him, and I was like, Brian, I'm obviously fine. And I was doing this, and he kind of always says that like, if you're showing your personality and if you're joking around with him, that's usually a sign that you're
Yeah.
okay. And I was doing that even in the state I was in. So it is an incredibly difficult one because, yeah, in hindsight, I think that's probably somewhere that I should have come out of the game. But it really wasn't until wasn't until I watched it like in the weeks afterwards that I looked
Right.
back at that and said, oh wait, no, that definitely was something. Like even like I never had a single symptom following like when I had the like kind of lap back in, I guess, and that wasn't something I really picked up on until kind of, as I said, weeks later. So yeah, it was really unfortunate, and yeah, the biggest game of my life up to that point that had to happen so early.
Right.
But it is a bit of the part of the game that we play, and I'd never want to take the physicality out of rugby, but head health is an incredibly important thing, and I'd encourage everyone to take that really seriously. And that probably wasn't the best example I could have given of taking head health really seriously,
Right.
but it is really difficult because I at the time I don't think I or Brian, or really I'm not sure anyone else could have said that I needed to come out, because I guess maybe it was you had to be on TV to really see the full effect. I'm not sure.
Right. And, also as a guy that's not one of the bigger players out there, you make a ton of tackles. And so I guess you've tackled big guys like that hundreds of times. And so there's no, it's tough to know like which one of those 100 tackles, was the head really affected, in such a way. So, it's like you said, it's very tough, call to judge in that situation,
Yeah.
especially in such a big game. Well, man, I have so many questions for you, but I know that we only have limited time. So I want to ask you just a couple more. I have 3 more questions for you. My first one is, excluding American players, if you could pick 3 guys of all the other teams you've ever played on to join your team, which 3 guys would you pick?
Ooh, to join our team, that's tough, because that, I mean, like, then I'd want to build around. Yeah, I'm just gonna pick 3 players.
Okay, not join your team, just the 3
Yeah.
the 3 top guys outside of America.
So first I'll pick Tom Mitchell from England. I think he's a guy who plays a similar position to me, and does a lot of similar things to what I like to think I do. But he's just such an incredible player. He leads a lot of everything for England, and he gets a decent amount of attention, but not all the attention that a lot of the other guys
Right.
get. But I think he just pulls the strings so well for them, is an attacking threat for himself, and then is a very underrated part of just, he's such an incredible sweeper. I think our guys have said it, that you're one-on-one with him, and he does such a good job of setting you up to go the direction that he wants you to go, and then when it's the right moment, closing that space and making his tackles. So that'll be the first one. Second, I'll say Sibela Sanatla from South Africa. I think he's been away from the game for a little bit right now, but he would just finish absolutely everything. And that South Africa team has so many incredible threats, but it did very much become like, hey, someone would do something, and then Sanatla would get the ball, and he'd just go and score. And that is something that I think they've kind of missed a little bit since he has moved away to do a bit more 15s. And he's been involved a little bit over the last few years, but not at the level he was when he was really flying and scoring just so many tries. That'll be the first two. Let me think about a third one. I guess I'll stick with my position. I'll go for Jerry Tuai, an incredible halfback. I mean, his footwork is just absolutely unbelievable. And he'll be in the smallest space with defenders all around him, and it's just like his feet move in all sorts of different directions, and then he'll shoot through the tiniest of gap. And again, as a halfback, he's someone I look at, and a lot of the things he does, I think, wow, I'm not sure I could ever do that, but I'll sure as hell try and copy it and see what I can do. So in attack, he's incredible. And then I think his defensive work has also improved massively. I think when he first came into the team, he was an incredible attacking threat, but had to work on his defense. But over the years, he's become a really good tackler for a smaller guy, but it's his work at securing breakdowns, and he just gets so low over the ball, and his center of mass is low and secure. And once he latches onto the ball in the poaching position, he's really hard to dislodge. So I think that's an underrated part of his game that has really come a long way, and he's obviously worked hard on.
Yeah, Hayes definitely one of my favorite players. Obviously, everyone loves Sanatla, and then I like that you said Tom Mitchell, because I have always thought he's been underrated. Just the key cog there for England, over the years, and unfortunately had like the greatest kick pass in sevens ever.
Yeah, right on me, right on my head.
Sadly,
that was very sad.
Couldn't have been better, but that's cool. You picked three guys, three backline guys. So my second to last question is, what sort of words of encouragement or advice or words of wisdom do you have for aspiring young players coming up into the next generation?
I think the biggest thing you can do is practice your core skills. It's something that we're still doing constantly. I'm still doing constantly. Mike's always there telling me my left-handed pass isn't good enough, so I need to work on it more. So I think the more you can just practice those small drills on your passing, your tackling, your kicking, and just try and make them as second nature as you can, so that when you're in the game, you're not thinking about any of that stuff. You're thinking about seeing what's in front of you and reacting to that. And if you need to make a pass, you can make a pass because you've practiced a million times. So I'd say just practice those core skills as much as you can. And then I think there's also no real substitute for play and playing as many games and matches as you can. And obviously you need to look after your body and you shouldn't push yourself too hard. But just play the game and enjoy the game, because if you're not enjoying it, you won't want to play. And if you don't want to play, then you're not gonna improve as much otherwise. So I think take the enjoyment and make sure you're always enjoying it. But play as much as you can and practice your core skills, because those are what's going to take you to the top level. I mean, everyone loves to see flashy stuff that comes off 10% of the time and someone got that one on video. But it's about consistently doing the right things at the right time and executing as well as you can. Because if you're that guy who consistently does the right thing, that's what the coaches will want to see at a higher level. And it's not just the guy who can make the one incredible offload, but gave away 8 turnovers early in the game.
Right. Cool. I like that. I've heard that from All Blacks and the very top guys a lot. They specifically talk about the fundamental skills, the basics. And obviously you've worked on them a lot, and you're not going to stop even no matter where you are.
Never good enough.
Right. So final question, and you can keep this as brief as you like, but in your own words, what is rugby?
I think rugby is an incredible team sport. it's incredibly dynamic and it's a visual one, especially rugby sevens, which I do love. But it's also a community and a family, and it's a lot of great people coming together to have fun and yeah, play a great game.
That's good. I like that a lot. Well, Madison, I really appreciate you hopping on with me. You're one of my very favorite players, and it's cool to talk to you. And I wish you and the boys luck moving forward, and especially heading into the Olympics now next year. Best of luck, and appreciate everything you've done for American rugby.
Awesome, Alex. Thank you for the kind words. And yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.